Welcome to Mark My Words, a show that searches for the fork in the road in life, the place where the turning point in the journey of entrepreneurship and life can be found. Let's meet each other at the crossroads on Mark My Words. When I'm booking guests for Mark My Words, there's a lot of things that I look at, but probably one of the most important things that I look for, and there are a lot of things of value that guests can bring regardless of your path or what you do with your career. But I really love when I have guests like Igor Vainshtein, who has all these really unique things going on in his entrepreneurial career. I mean, he's a speaker, he is also an author, but probably most importantly, he's a startup addict, and I'm guessing that is self-proclaimed.
Yeah.
He is a golf entrepreneur. He's the founder of GolfTrak, which is a really awesome golf app that helps people to become more accurate and improve their golf game with their phone, which I can't wait to hear more about. And he is also the founder of Entrepreneurpoly, which I was also worried I was not going to be able to say once I hit record, but I did it. And Igor is here on Mark My Words today. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. I know Entrepreneurpoly is a bit of a challenging name, but just like just like the journey, it's worthwhile if you can get through it.
Well, you said it a lot more smoothly than I did. That was
I've had a
really
bit of practice, so if I can't say it correctly, we're in trouble. But yeah, I've had to actually get like a shortened domain name because it's like I try to spell it out to people, and I'm like, you know what, I give up. So I set up biz.game, biz, like business, biz.game as like the short domain name. Like just go there, and it'll redirect you because trying to type out Entrepreneurpoly, let alone saying it, is not an easy feat.
well, I've done over 100 episodes of Mark My Words now, and every time, even to this day, whenever I try to type in the word entrepreneur, I still have to check myself. The technology checks me and autocorrects it. So
Yeah.
it's even for me, it's like kind of a weird word to spell. You would think I would know it like the back of my hand by now, but I simply do not. So, or I'm at least second guessing myself. So, but maybe a few more episodes featuring products like this one, and I'll be able to spell it like the back of my hand. So, let's go ahead and put some of those pleasantries aside, and let's start off this episode the way I do most of the time. And the one thing that really caught my attention, I mean, you went to school, you're a very international, worldly guest because you started out in the USSR, Australia, and now you're in the US, you've been all over. And I saw that for higher education, you not only study information systems, but you also study entrepreneurship, which is a first. I've never met anybody who actually studied entrepreneurship. So, was this something that you were thinking about doing all along? Tell your story a little bit.
Well, I mean, not the course itself. I mean, uh, I think I was born a little bit different. I say that a lot. My wife definitely agrees with that. But I was born in a communist country with very, very strong entrepreneurial drive. So there's definitely an element of nature there. But I was also very strongly encouraged by my parents, who always said to me, "You can achieve anything you want in life as long as you put it, willing to put in the hard work." And so I've always carried, that. idea that entrepreneurship equals extremely hard work. And my God, it is. But it's also the most, one of the most rewarding things. I kind of say to people that having kids is the hardest thing I think in the world, but it's also the most rewarding. Entrepreneurship is like the second thing, like it's like the next hardest thing in the whole world, and it's also extremely rewarding. Very different, but yeah, it's hard work. So, I would say, I was born with some element of that entrepreneurial kind of spirit. And my parents saw it early and obviously wanted to kind of give me a bit of future, which is why, they migrated all of us to Australia. And we grew up very poor. We came from, from nothing. We landed with two suitcases or four suitcases, $200, and English, no English. This is my second language, which makes most people laugh actually when sort of I say it out loud. Um, and um, and then it just got nurtured along the way. But then I also ended up in a career, and I know I'm kind of skipping things, but we can always come back. But I kind of started I started my first business when I was about 17, really, and then I went into corporate world after I finished college. And then a little bit after, after a couple of my roller coaster, ups and downs and hitting rock bottom a few times, I found this program at I think it was RMIT University over in Melbourne, and they had a very interesting. They had this Masters of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, and I really thought it'd be quite an interesting journey to try to formalize some of those thoughts that I have and try to get myself focused and see what, are there any kind of standardized processes to it. Um, but the other thing I really also wanted to get out of it, which I only could really put a finger on way later in my life, more recently, is just meeting really amazing people. And I felt like that course would attract, crazy people like me, and we'd be in the same place, and we would kind of connect, and that definitely happened. I did connect with some really amazing people. So that's how I ended up there, but it wasn't very planned as such, because I never thought, how do you study entrepreneurship, right? But then again, it is something you can study, and it is something that I think is there's ways to go about it that can improve your skills, your toolbox, which is kind of where my idea came from for the board game. But yeah, I think even if you're born with entrepreneurship kind of in your heart, to be able to leverage it to create success in life and create successful businesses or a business or whatever, I think you need to kind of channel it in the right way as well. I think just having the drive is not always enough.
So, all of us who have dabbled in entrepreneurship have, most of us have learned through the school of life. Is there anything that you studied or picked up on while studying entrepreneurship in a more controlled environment that benefited you once you got into being an entrepreneur?
I don't know. I don't think there was anything particularly revolutionary. It's just a couple of maybe some tools and process. Again, it's just building up your toolbox of tricks and templates or things like that. But there's so much information out there, almost too much right now on the internet. Um, but the one thing there's one thing that there's a couple of kind of big aha moments that happened. And so the dean of the college that taught entrepreneurship, he sold his company, if I remember correctly, to Oracle for like, I don't know, 12 million bucks. But the funny part was that he was losing like $2 million a year when he sold it. But he said if because it was a strategic purchase, Oracle could turn it into $100 million business within a year, because they said, well, we can take what you've built and sell it to all our customers. And he said that entrepreneurship is a strategic to kind of leverage the maximum from your entrepreneurial kind of scale. He said that you need to be able to find a strategic buyer that even if you're losing money, you can still make a really good exit out of it. And so that stayed with me for a while. But the other thing the other way I learned over the years is really reading as many books, business biographies as I could find, especially the ones that talk about the really big kind of fails. So like I love obviously Smartest Guys in the Room, documentary about Enron, or Bad Blood, about is it Theranos or whatever the blood testing company. I mean, I love those documentaries. Some of my favorite things to do is to watch documentaries, but also books like Boohoo.com, which is they blew 500 million of venture capital, and were ahead of their time. To me, those kind of stories, I think we learn a lot more from failure than we do from success. And those stories kind of tell you the real story, exactly how it happened. I find there's a lot of success books that are they're too quick to go from like being in the dumps to success, and then all this stuff that comes after success. But I think the most interesting bit is actually comes from like when you're climbing your way out of the dumps. To me, that is the true kind of college of, the school of hard knocks, right? And that's what I want to know about.
I'm totally with you on that because one of the things that I try to emphasize on this show is you're going to have ups and downs. It can be a very isolating experience being an entrepreneur, especially in this day and age, and you're putting a lot on your own shoulders. I mean, especially when you're starting out. So I know I've had situations with this show where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like crap after X, Y, and Z happened. And I'm like, you take it very personal, you're gutted, and when you're in those moments, you're like, how can I go on? How can I continue? But you always find a way, especially if the passion for what you're doing is within you, you're gonna figure out a way. And I know reading through a lot of like your LinkedIn, I don't even know where I picked up on it, but you mentioned one of my favorite words, which is resilience. And
Mm.
resilience is very important. And I see that within your history because after school, it looks like you had some times where you were trying to start up a business, then went into the corporate world, and you were kind of like back and forth for a while. So
Yeah.
tell that story a little bit.
Yeah, so well, I like to joke that I've been to rock bottom so many times. I have a membership card, and I've had to kind of go back to the corporate world multiple times, and it's like it was always like a double-edged sword where I was very good at what I did from a job point of view. I was in tech. I was I could climb kind of the ladder pretty quickly whenever I went into corporate, but I also kind of found myself very frustrated and not really enjoying that life. And so I always kind of kept going back to entrepreneurship, and then I would go and lose a lot of money and then come back and try, get a job to pay off all my debt and then go again. And I did that at least I think 5 times. So when I finished uni, college, uni, I had already my first business when I was like 17. Then I worked for like one of the first startups, dot com startups in Australia, wishlist.com.au, and we had an amazing time, learned so much. But then, with my parents' encouragement, they said, look, why don't you go get a job as a consultant? There's a lot of, it's a lot of money. And we had some family friends who were doing that. And so I did. Ended up working in a big corporate, international SAP, big German software company. And, I was very good at what I did. So I ended up kind of climbing very quickly by 22 or something. I was the youngest senior consultant in the world out of whatever, 20 or 40,000 employees that they have. And then it was like, hey, you got to be, you're gonna have to be here for like 10 years because you're too young. And but that at that point I actually lost my first fortune. So while I had the job, I bought properties because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he's got a board game called Cashflow 101, which was one of the inspirations for my board game. So kudos to Robert Kiyosaki. But the book really helped me, and his advisor called Dolph DeRoos, he wrote a book called Real Estate Riches. He was like one of the advisors of Kiyosaki. And that book got me into the real estate, buy, renovate, revalue, buy more, etc. And I went from like, my first property that my parents helped me buy to like 14 properties by 22. And then, down to like 2 properties by 23 when I lost everything because I left the job. I was going through a really tough personal time. I was going through pretty bad depression. And I got into self-help books, and a lot of them said you got to quit your job to be happy, which by the way is not true. There's nothing like being broke to cure happiness, right?
Yeah.
So I went and I invested all this money into this startup business with 3 schmucks. I was the fourth schmuck, the biggest one because I funded the whole thing, lost everything, and as I was sort of down to my last couple of dollars, I started this consulting business kind of back in the trade that I was in, and I built that from, just billing my time to 22 consultants, about 4.5 million in revenue in 4 years, and then lost everything again. And then I had a couple more sort of ups and downs like that. And I would, a lot of the time I would like, I can say it now, but I would basically embellish my resume to make it sound like I had all, and I had the great experience, but like to make it sound, really applicable to just like a tech job, like a project manager or something like that, change manager jobs, like consultant, whatever. And there's sometimes a lot of embellishment, right? And I would go back into the corporate world, start making some money, and because in the IT world pays so well, I would make good money, and then I would go start another business, and then I would lose 100 grand, and I'm like, oh, man. So I was up and down. At one point, I was $1 million in debt. A lot of it to my parents. I used up all their life savings and retirement, and had to kind of pay them back and climb my way out of the hole. And that happened to me multiple times. And so the uh, the kind of the addiction was to that's why I call myself a startup addict, because I always wanted to start. I was always looking for like how do I make my startup scale quickly? And I always thought that it was a bit like gambling. Like I'm not like I hate gambling at a casino. I've done it maybe once in my life, twice, but to me, I was like gambling with the business and the money there, because I would always think, if I just like if I borrowed 50 grand and I invested in this business, hey, I could double my money in the first 3 months. I could pay back the first 50. I'd have 50. I'd then reinvest it again and double it again, and all of that. And that kind of thought process is what basically destroyed me multiple times going through. And I would always like try to like double the money, double the bet. And that's really not the right way to approach business. Um, yeah. So that's my corporate life. It was in tech. I ended up being a CTO when and by that point, um, I was working full time and my business was already doing a couple of million in revenue, but I was holding onto the cash flow so much that I couldn't reinvest everything back into the business. And so now I tell people, it's like, look, cash flow is king. If you want to make better decisions as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, make sure, you don't have a debt noose around your neck, because I spent, 15, 20 years with that noose. And it forces you, not, it doesn't force you, you end up making really bad decisions a lot of the time, because you're coming it from a kind of point of desperation instead of a point of abundance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And as much as I want to talk about uh GolfTrak, which we can get to, you're talking a lot about your real world experiences, and I know that your game Entrepreneurpoly is very reflective of that. You talk about that on the website, and maybe talk a little bit about the how the game mirrors your experiences and how people can relate, how it might help them.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the game, I wrote the game first time in 2007. I was 27. I was very different stage of life. I had gone through some ups and downs, but I didn't really have like this huge success. Or at least I didn't see it that way, because the business that I built so successfully ended up collapsing. And I wrote the game as a kind of a testament to those lessons that I had learned at that point. I wanted to really take my experiences and put it in a structured way that I reflected upon the things that got me to that place, both in terms of the ups and the down, and identified some key things, right? And so that's what kind of got into the game. So one of the things, for example, there's always opportunities, right? We know there's opportunities, right? That's pretty standard. But there are other cards in the game which really resonated with me. They kind of came to me. I can't remember how, but one of the cards is deal with it. And that card is basically like things happen. You just got to deal with it. Like there's no other way around of complaining about it, stressing about it. It's not going to help. It's not going to change it. It's there. You have to deal with it. And that's the muscle that builds resilience. That's the exercise that builds the muscle of resilience, etc. That you mentioned earlier. And so I put sort of my experiences into the game, and also put the people I read about or my friends who are entrepreneurs, and I put those experiences into the game as cards so that as you go through the process, you get to kind of experience in a gamified way these moments where you have to either deal with it or you have to see opportunities, let go of opportunities sometimes, feel that, fear of missing out, etc. And ultimately you're kind of doing those repetitions to build those muscles that really make you a better entrepreneur. My favorite card in the game is actually one called Encounters. And encounters is where you meet people and they have a profound effect on your either life or career or business. And there's one card in there that's again from my personal experience. You meet someone who you think is going to be a great mentor to you. They end up being a con man and they steal $100,000 from you. Um, and that literally happened to me. And you know, it's like how do you prepare for that, right? There's nothing you can do. Like it's done. Um, and then there's other, obviously, where you meet a great mentor and they increase your profitability by 10%, or they do this or that. So they have an effect on that. And so I wanted to kind of I talk about it as crowdsourcing entrepreneurial experience. It's like what Wikipedia did for knowledge. I want to do this. This is kind of one of my missions. I want to do this for entrepreneurship, for all the lessons, especially all the failures that are out there in the world. And I was reading some statistics recently. It's estimated there are 600 million entrepreneurs in the world, right? 8% of the population, roughly, which is a huge number. But only 1 in 9 businesses succeed. And I've started over 20 businesses. So I'm right dead on that kind of ratio. So if you think about that, 600 million entrepreneurs, if they're going to have like 8 failed businesses before they succeed, roughly speaking, like 5 billion, failures out there and 5 billion lessons that can be shared amongst all the other entrepreneurs. And, I think to me, what's exciting is in this, world of the digital age we live in now, that idea of crowdsourcing all that knowledge and kind of distilling it into a structure, through the game. And then first you do that. Now there are books, right? So you can get that knowledge, some of those is through the books. But I wanted to make it a two-way. I wanted because my thoughts back to Cash Flow 101 from Robert Kiyosaki was really, really fun way to learn in a social way, and also like in a gamified way. So you really, yeah, you get to make the decisions. You're not just watching a movie. It's like, that new Netflix trend where, you can participate in the story. It's kind of like that, where you actually get to make decisions, and you have to see how that decision affects the rest of things, and then you can, either regret it or get excited about it or whatever. But ultimately, repetitions, building that muscle of resilience is kind of what I'm hoping to achieve, and kind of lift the success of all entrepreneurs in the world.
Well, resilience is something that I preach, and I hate using the word preach, but the heck with it. I preach it all the time with people, especially on this show. It's so important. And
Mm.
you mentioned another thing that is very important, and that's the relationships that we build. Because for me, the one thing that I think I may have overlooked, obviously, I knew I was going to have people on my show where it doesn't really work, but I think I underestimated how much of like a positive effect the relationships were going to have on me. Like everybody I've had on this show has had a pretty positive impact on me, and hearing everybody's stories from you to Scott Stoltz, my first guest on this show. I mean, everybody has a
The,
unique
the guy that
story.
you talked about, public fear of public speaking with him, right?
Yeah, I did. And we talked a lot, just every guest just about talking about what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. Like it's not just being Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates and you're not just born with a lot of money or a silver spoon in your mouth. A lot of people are out there working really hard, coming up with innovative ideas and really grinding it out to make a living and to make something of their life and to live a different kind of life than just the structured wake up, go to the office, punch out, and go home. It's a different kind of life that you're signing up for, both a lot of hard work and resourcefulness and resilience, but there's also a reward in that you might be able to make your own schedule. You might have more flexibility. And I know kind of some of the things that you mentioned on your site for Entrepreneur Poly is just balance life and things of that nature. And that is also something that you can get. And I'm guessing that this is something that you've received from being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, and but there's it's not by accident because um, you have to define what success is to you. If you can make a lot of money, I have friends who are doctors who make, really big money, but they don't have time freedom. They're always on call. They're always in the hospital working, doing surgeries or whatever. So yeah, they make a lot of money, but do they get to enjoy those moments, the really important moments with their kids, with their family, with their parents, etc. So having one, without time freedom is not really it, but you can have a lot of time freedom and have no money. That also is not a lot of fun. So I think you got to define what is that success and when, there might be different stages in life. As my kids are almost 6 and almost 10. It's very important for me to spend time with them right now because, later they'll, they won't think I'm cool anymore and they won't want to hang out. I'll have way more time freedom, to go pursue my other things. But at the moment, it's so important to have that time freedom and that ability to make those decisions, to spend, time, because time is one thing that money can't buy. And so that, to me, entrepreneurship is a way that can really make it happen. But I also will say that I have friends who work in great jobs, and in fact, the last job I had before I went, fully kind of left my career and with the growth of my business was the best job I ever had, and I had a great CEO. I was like a CTO at the company, and I had a great team working with me, and I had a great boss and a great board, and I had the time freedom as well. I was able to achieve that even in a job. So I think it's not exclusive to entrepreneurship or a job. I think it's just how conscious you want to be around how you design your life, and it's about making those decisions, being very conscious of your ownership of that, right? Not being a passenger through it, even if you have a job, um, but being very what's the word, like proactive in how you make that happen, designing your life. There's that. And then going back to something you just said earlier around, entrepreneurship being kind of, hard and tough work, which it is, right? When I was doing play testing, so I wrote the game in 2007, put it on the shelf for like almost 15 years. And then after I had an exit almost 2 years ago, I decided to really kind of dust it off and kind of rebuild it, remodernize it, and put in more of my experiences since that time. And I hired a great game designer, Jackie. He's got a Thai name that I can't pronounce, so everyone calls him Jackie. He's on the website. You can get a little biography about him, but amazing, amazing guy. And he really helped me kind of redo all the mechanics and all of that. And so we also did play testing. We did about, I think, 12 play tests with various groups of people. And I think on the third play test, there was a really interesting moment where the guys and girls playing, they said, this is really not what I expected from entrepreneurship. This is like financial literacy. You're learning about income statement, balance sheets. You're learning about risk management and this. We thought it'd be more like deal making and, collaborative and this and that. And I said, you know what, guys, you've just given me the best news ever, because the vision of entrepreneurship you have is the rose-colored version that is Hollywood version that is in movies. The real version is not that. The real version is know your numbers, know your cash flow, know your risks, and kind of get punched in the face on a daily basis and get up and do it all over again, tomorrow. That's what entrepreneurship is. And so when they said that, all those things, I was so excited and happy because I'm like, yes, it achieved the purpose that I set out to achieve, which is not to give you a false view of what it truly looks like.
And that's why I think what you're trying to do with the game is so cool because it's very easy to just think of entrepreneurship in all the ways that we pointed out, both your side and my side, because up until I started doing this show and started actually meeting real entrepreneurs on the ground floor, really trying to make something of themselves. That was kind of the same view that I had. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, there's all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. And, it's not just, well, I'm kicking back and, easy street and I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm like a gazillion. Like, no, it's not like that. And, the one thing that I did want to talk about that you were alluding to a little bit is how how do you surround yourself with the right people? Because you have been back and forth over the years. I'm not totally sure how much you've just been yourself versus having a staff, but how is it for you as far as like how do you know you have the right people around you and how important is that to you?
So there's kind of two what I would say two ways I'll answer that. One is the people that work for you, and and then there's people that are generally around you, whether it's mentors or peers or whatever, right? The kind of two groups of people that I would say are quite, pivotal to your entrepreneurship in your career. So in terms of the team, when I hire people, my goal is always to hire. I want to be the dumbest person in the room. Right? I want to hire the absolute best people I can afford. I want to attract them with an amazing future. Kind of, you see that sort of Elon Musk tweet about hiring people for that Department of Government efficiency Dodge or whatever. And he said, this is going to be unglamorous. It's going to be 80 hours a week, but you're going to achieve, the most amazing things and etc. So the vision that he built. And I'm like, that's kind of how I approach things. I'm like, I can't pay you the top salary. I can't give you all the benefits, but I can give you an amazing experience because we're going to be on a mission to do something truly unique. And so I try to attract people like that. And then I'm very good at, and I think I am anyway, and my people tell me that I am, of getting the hell out of their way. Because the reality is that they need to, if you hire them to do a job, you need to trust them to do the job and not get in their way and micromanage them and do all of that, which I has happened to me so much in my corporate career. Um, and so I have this conversation with them a lot. I say, look, I really like playing golf, and your job is to make me play as much golf as possible. And they laugh, and I laugh, and I say, look, I'm actually semi-serious about that. Like, I will bulldoze whatever barrier you have, but otherwise, I'm trusting you to do your job. And so, I do want to go play golf, and I want you to let you do your thing, and kind of perform at your best, and also hire the best people you can hire. Kind of doing the same thing where like hire people that will free up your time and give you back, time to do more important things, more efficient things, more to your skill, etc. So that's kind of how I see teams, and building the right people around you is really just having great leaders, great team members that know that you trust them. To me, that's one of the most important things is when people know that you trust them, they act accordingly. And if they don't, they're the wrong people, right? If they want to be handheld or they want to, come to me and for every decision say, what do you think I should do? It's like, this is the wrong place. But for people that kind of want to back themselves and have the guts to kind of go for it, and trust themselves, and use me as a um, um, either as a sounding board, or as a mentor, as a coach, whatever, but not a parent. I'm not here to parent anyone, and so that's how I hire a team. And then from the point of view of like your peers, or your mentors, or the people you surround yourself, I think it's really important to approach it from a kind of a different mindset, which is this kind of my idea of the mindset is be the kind of person that those people want to be around, be the kind of person that these amazing mentors want to mentor, right? So don't go to them seeking things, become the person that will attract them to you and that they will want to work with you, right? So be interesting, be genuine, be honest, have integrity, do what you say you will do, all of those things, and those things will happen. Whereas if you try to surround yourself with the right people, but you're always kind of trying to get energy from them, get information from them, etc. You're always in the receiving end, and you want to be. I think that doesn't work out very well, and you end up attracting the wrong people, or you don't attract anyone. You know what I mean?
I do, and I love your attitude with everything, and especially so one of my biggest approaches to doing this show is to have the mindset of I'm the quote unquote dumbest person in the room. Like I am not the expert of your board game or of the golf app. I'm not the expert of your life or your path or I have, certainly have opinions and feedback and all of that. But for me, when I'm talking to somebody on this show, I always come in with the attitude of, I hope we do X, Y, and Z, or something comes up that actually shows the listener or viewer what maybe not to do or what to think. I'm okay. And I have put myself in that position a couple of times. I'm like, well, somebody will learn something, and I know I just learned something. And you almost have to be a little bit fearless about those kind of things and
Yeah,
not be afraid to, as we've been kind of alluding to off and on about making a mistake or
yeah.
maybe having that moment where you do say something that's could be considered kind of stupid and that's the only way you grow and you learn.
Yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to make a fool out of yourself and just laugh it off and keep moving. I think I think people who take themselves too seriously, they end up missing out on a lot of really great experiences in life because they're too afraid of the what if, or what other people will think. It's like it doesn't matter what they think. 10 years from now, no one will remember this moment except you. And you might regret that you never tried something. And so if 10 years from now no one will remember it, why not just go with it now and go, well, if you know that now, why not just do it?
Well, speaking of might as well and going and doing it and going for it in life, I don't want to get to the end of this without at least talking a little bit about GolfTrak and just tell the story because you describe yourself as a golf entrepreneur as well,
Yeah.
many other things. So let's talk a little bit about that and then the board game. Like, I feel like innovation is a big factor and has been a big factor in your whole career. And I'll give you the keys to drive that conversation.
Thank you. So, I guess I'll start by saying that, golf wasn't something I was passionate about when I was young. I was a tech geek and still am in many ways. And I got to golf by accident. So I had a good friend, a very close friend, Damon, who was a good golfer. And at this time, I was kind of consulting at Australia Post in the project space and like tech projects and trying to pay off some of the debt that I accumulated through my failed businesses up to that point. And he said, hey, there's this business, it's like a virtual golf center. You can come get some lessons. He said, why don't you come get a lesson or two, see if you like it. And I'm like, all right, all right. So I went and got a couple lessons and I actually really started enjoying it. And I sucked, pretty bad. And the business was going out of business. It was like a 6 bay indoor golf center. It was called GolfTrak Australia. And David and I was like, well, decided, well, hey, this would work really well. So in the building where I was working for Australia Post, on the ground level, there was this big, about 7,000 square foot retail space for lease. And I said, you know what? I said to Damon, this business would do really well here. And it was going broke, so we ended up buying it for next to nothing, and we spent a fortune moving it to this location. Learned a lot of lessons there because we never had done retail before, and we built that up. And one day I got a phone call from the US from a guy named Joe Assel, who's the founder of GolfTech USA, who kind of said, hey, why do you have our name? And we had a trademark on it, and we ended up chatting and we tried to merge the companies. Didn't work out, but we stayed friends, and I'll kind of come back to the relevance of that later. So there was this indoor golf center. It did okay, didn't do so well. And then I was like, look, I have this vision for these 24-hour venues that I wanted to open. So I kind of got out of that business, opened up a 24/7 golf, which is the brand I came up with for like those 24-hour gyms. But for golf, again, using kind of my tech, background and what I like tech, combining that with golf, started that. The first one did well. The first venue had 2 bays, unmanned, all that. We did well. Opened up a second venue, borrowed another 100 grand from my parents. That business completely flopped. So I lost all that in like 3 months. And I had to sell all the stuff, that I had in the shop, the 4 simulators, especially because I had 4 bays. And I sold it on Facebook Marketplace and it kind of sold pretty quickly and pretty easily. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll buy some more. So I bought some more and then I sold those and thought to myself, well, maybe I should be in e-commerce instead of, retail services. So I got out of the that first venue that I built and I went all in on e-commerce. And then I started manufacturing because I couldn't get the stuff in Australia. You had to bring it from the US and it was just too expensive. So I started manufacturing in China, bring in, I designed like these enclosures. It was golf simulator space, by the way. So it was all golf simulator. And then COVID hit and my, golf was banned and fishing was banned and all this crazy stuff happened, I'd rather not even think about it. But my business went crazy. We grew like 500-600% in those 2 years. And it allowed me to expand to the US because I identified that I could manufacture things at a price that other people couldn't match. And so I thought, I want to play in the biggest market in the world. So expanded to the US. Then I moved here as soon as COVID lockdowns were finished in Australia. And, kind of long story, a little bit shorter. One day I get a phone call from that guy that called me 10 years before and said, we'd like to buy a company. Um, and I ended up selling 24/7 Golf to GolfTrak, who also acquired SkyTrack, which is a launch monitor that tracks the ball and all that. And that was just an amazing experience. And it's been amazing since. I'm still there as well, helping grow the business. But early on, like in 24/7 Golf, about 2016, I was designing this custom software to kind of film a golfer from 2 angles when they're hitting golf balls in my venue. And I replaced the cameras with 2 phones because they had better cameras than the little cameras I was buying on eBay. And I had this idea. I'm like, oh, I wonder if you can use these phones to track the ball and kind of do the same thing that all these really expensive launch monitors do. And I started developing I started with one guy at the time. Now I've got, I think, 15 people in my team. Kind of 8 years later, yes, you can. And so there's this, my team built this amazing app that basically replaces, well, that doesn't replace it. It allows people that can't afford the two, three, 10, $12,000 devices that track the ball to just, get their phone out and just use the cameras on the back of their phone to be able to play virtual golf and all that. So it kind of opens. It's like I call it like making a driving range like a Top Golf, right? Where you have all this tech and all this fun experience. And so that's kind of where the kind of customer I'm going after is really more for the fun and have fun at home playing virtual golf when in the past they maybe couldn't afford it or couldn't commit the kind of money that you needed to get that. So that's GolfTrak. So it was kind of like being built at the same time. And the e-com manufacturing business kind of was funding the app as it was growing. And then when I had the exit, obviously I could fund the app further and grow the team. And that's kind of where we are now. It's been in the market for 2 years now, and it's been a hell of an experience, learning a lot about apps and all that. But it's kind of in that AI computer vision space, and which is something I really like, being a tech geek, like I said. So keep combining kind of technology and golf as my 2 passions. So that's really very lucky to be in that space because, as you said, when you love what you do, you just grind it out even when most people give up because you just love it. And that's kind of where I am.
Well, I think it's a really awesome idea. I love the concept of it. And I am one of those people. I live in Florida, but I've never actually played on a real course. But I go to Top Golf, or I did before I
There you
got
go.
really busy at work. It's been my day job has been really crazy busy for the past year. So I've been wanting to get back to like Top Golf and on a real course, but
Hmm.
I know that my swing could use a little more you know,
Punchiness.
repair. So
Yeah.
I really am anxious to try the app. And if this was the kind of show where I knew I could demo the app, we would I would make it a part of this episode. But unfortunately, I don't think we could. But
That might be a little bit
I
challenging.
so one thing about creating an app, uh, what have you learned by doing that process? Because that's a little bit different. I don't think I've had a whole lot of people on this show that have tried something like that. What have you learned from trying to develop an app
Yeah.
and make it
So
better?
the main thing with an app is it's all about the experience. That's what I've learned. You know, you may have built great tech, but if your experience doesn't live up to the customer's expectations, they have a choice to delete your app within a split second. And so you don't get a lot of opportunities to make a first impression again. So it's really all about first impression and a great user experience. And I think that's where a lot of apps fail, and that's where we struggled for many years because we built great technology, but we couldn't get people to use it because it was finicky to set up, and but because it was so available to anyone. If you didn't build an app that made it very easy for someone to just get going, we had a lot of churn, and that was a really interesting lesson to learn. So I've really come over to the kind of the camp that is just very over invested in the user experience. I think that I couldn't kind of stress enough how important the user experience is in that, because there are so many apps out there and there's so many apps that do the same thing, right? So how do you stand out? How do you get referrals? How do you get stickiness? And yeah, that's what I found, is that it really is, um, it's a user experience thing. Probably more so than anything else I found in any other business that I've been involved in. Because when you sell stuff or you sell widgets or you sell something for people's homes, especially high ticket stuff, there are expectations, but there are also people, customers also invest more time in research. So by the time they get to you, they, especially with so much information available online, they already have a good idea of what they want. That's what I found. And so you're serving a certain needs in that. But when you're available to just anyone with a phone, it's different. They may not know what they want. They just want to give it a try. They want to experiment. They want to get a feel for it. And so that first impression has to be so rock solid that keeps them coming back. And so that's been a sometimes school of hard knocks type of experience, but it's made us better. And I think the current version we have is an amazing sort of user experience journey that's very well, I guess you'll be the judge of that when you download it. So let me know
Yeah,
what you think.
well, I commend you for sticking with this for so many years. And
Mm.
I have to imagine, even though technology has come a long way in our time, I mean, even back a few years ago, what you were trying to do was still a pretty revolutionary idea. So, I feel like all you can only go up and up. And I'm sure, much like everything else that you're doing, it's just gonna keep growing and getting better. And I think your ideas and your attitude is just so amazing and
Thank you.
very innovative, and never thought of how entrepreneurship itself could be a game and you could actually learn. I think that's brilliant idea. And I think now is probably a good time for you to maybe tell everybody again how they can find the game, the app, how they can maybe work with you, and anything else that you want to add.
No, thank you. I mean, it's been great. So best way is LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn or reach out to me, connect there. The board game, if you can spell it, Entrepreneurpoly dot game, or if you can't, biz.game, biz.game. And you can also find me on my website, igorvainshtein.com. But I do encourage people to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on there. And always happy to answer questions or hear stories of great stories, whether they're of success or of rock bottom stories. I'm always I love hearing stories, just full stop, in business. So thank you so much for having me and having such a fun conversation. I can't believe the time's gone so quickly.
It usually does, at least when it's enjoyable. It goes by very fast. This episode definitely went very fast, and Igor Vainshtein, I thank you so much for being here on Mark My Words and taking time out of your busy life to be here. And
Thank
again, Igor is the founder of the GolfTrak app, also the founder and creator of Entrepreneurpoly. And boom, look at that.
you. Got it. Look at this. You got it.
It gets smoother and the more you say it out loud. So Igor,
Uh,
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having
I'm
me.
Mark Schmidt. You just listen to Mark My Words, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to go on a journey with me into entrepreneurship and life on Mark My Words. If you would like to learn more about me and the show, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mark Schmidt or connect with me on Instagram at Nimrod79. Video episodes of Mark My Words, as well as other content, can also be found on the Mark My Words YouTube page. Entrepreneurship can be quite the roller coaster ride. It can be a bit isolating and intimidating, but it doesn't have to be that way. Let's meet here next time at the crossroads on another episode of Mark My Words.